Get this on the Triple M network.
Welcome aboard. It's our new time slot here in the afternoons. I think it's afternoon in most states. Perhaps you've never heard the show before. You're wondering who we are. It's Tony Martin. Give me a round of applause.
Sure.
We've got Ian Cavalier
Hello, nice to meet you.
in the sidecar. Richard Marsden pushes the buttons on this show.
Right here, Tone.
And yes, we have moved once again.
Well, they've been round this dance floor many times, Tony, and it's hard to follow all of the intricate steps, and I wouldn't pretend to know where the dance is going to necessarily take them to next.
Mid-dawns, that's where I think it's headed. But I've been told, guys, we've got to pull our socks up because the station is using this phrase to describe the new time slot. Richard, we're on Broadway.
Oh, look out.
That's right. It's Broadway.
One
Thank you.
singular sensation.
You never know what will play
Little step she takes.
next here at Triple M.
Formation dancing people.
And I'm just padding. Have we had computer trouble?
No, everything's fine.
Let's get straight to the big story. This is what we do. If you've never heard Get This before, we get straight to the big stories. Peter Costello, is he the Prime Minister yet?
I think so.
Wasn't that happening this week?
That's what he'd hope so.
He went up against Laurie Oakes on the weekend. Did you hear him? Have a listen to this.
If the government's position does get worse this week, is there any possibility of a pre-election leadership change?
No, Laurie, my position is today as it was last week and as it was last year, in fact. I'm going to this election as a team. John Howard asked me to go to this election with him as his deputy leader and his treasurer. Last year I said I would. I will.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Did you notice the very beginning of his answer? He started to say no and then changed his mind. Have a listen carefully.
Is there any possibility of a pre-election leadership change?
No, Laurie, my position is...
See, that's the giveaway.
You zatzed him.
Because he doesn't want to have a clip where he's saying no when the answer is probably going to be yes.
Yeah.
Whereas if you faff on about my answer being the same as it was this time last year, you can't box that up for a denial.
Can't.
So I think Laurie came at him again and...
So you're not interested in taking over if Newspoll is bad on Tuesday?
The position today is the same as it was last week. It's the same as it was year
Nobody's
before.
listening.
What?
We had...
Enough.
The discussion about
Sure.
these matters last year, he asked me to be part of his team in this election. I will be. Nothing's changed.
Okay, all
Is,
right.
is he talking about their mixed netball team for Wednesday nights?
I don't know what he's talking about. At least he's not talking about that Formula One racing car anymore.
Calibrated one.
Seems to have dropped that while we were away.
He's moved on.
He gave some great answers to Laurie. Have a listen to this one.
Well, Mr Howard says he'll certainly stand aside well into the next term. Does probably certainly constitute a core promise?
Look, it is not so unusual, incidentally, to have a succession in politics. Ask Peter Beattie. Ask Steve Bracks. Ask Bob Carr. Ask Jeff Gallop.
I have asked Gallop.
Ask the Labor Party.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, well,
It's a great list. It's a great list, isn't it?
Ask Peter Beattie.
Well, I haven't got his number, I'm afraid.
Ask
Mr.
Steve Bracks.
Well, why would I ask Steve Bracks? He's not.
Ask Bob Carr.
But he's retired as well. Why would
Ask Jeff Gallop.
I don't even know who that is. Who's
Ask
Jeff?
the Labor Party.
Well, how can I ask the whole party?
Ask Steve Bracks.
You already said Steve Bracks. Why would I?
Ask Peter Beattie.
Well, Peter Brady's retired.
Ask Jeff Gallop.
All hat and teeth. That's what they said. He
Ask
is.
Bob Carr.
I'm still back at Gallup.
Ask
Who-
Steve Bracks.
He said Braxy. Stop
Ask
it.
Jeff Gallop.
All right. I don't know who that
Ask
is.
Bob Carr.
what am I meant to ask him? I've
Who's
forgotten
this?
what I was meant
Ask
to
the
ask
Labor
him.
Party.
Stop
Ask
it.
them what?
Who's this Gallup? It's very confusing.
You seen that, Tone? Beattie's resigned.
Beattie's resigned, all hat and teeth.
Well, he was all hat and teeth, but
Yeah.
amazingly, they found a woman to take over that's all bob and teeth.
Right.
And apparently, if she resigns, the face at Luna Park is ready to step in.
Wow. So much stuff going up there in Brisbane.
Queensland.
Are we ready for Prime Minister Costello?
Oh, really?
He's got some great policies.
I want to address Australia's great challenges, challenges like the water crisis we're having and climate change, which is going to be a great issue for decades to come.
For dickheads to come, correct. A huge problem for the many dickheads to follow. I think we'll discover that as time goes on. Did John Howard respond himself to these claims about Peter Beattie, etc.? Have a listen to this.
After what I have seen from Peter Beattie and Steve Bracks, I would have thought time-specific pledges about how long people are going to serve are at tatty discount in Australian politics.
Well done. We are very
Time-specific.
on this show in our new time slot.
Where can I get a tatty fledge at a discount? What are we doing?
So you've got Ed. You've got people going, who's the other bloke?
Yeah.
Richard Marsden pushes the buttons. He's this kind of minor entertainment kingpin.
Yeah, thanks.
On the road.
No, that's
He
about right.
Does a bit of work with Ryan Shelton on the road. Shows up on community TV in many states. Sometimes teams up with Ann Wills in South Australia.
I do all mediums crappily,
Yeah, well done.
I think is the tagline.
Often on the beats. Working the beats.
Working the Adelaide Beats.
Yeah, often found being arrested in the Veal Gardens for no reason. Well, it's all been hushed up by the station.
We don't want to say too much.
Let's just put it that way.
Let's get into some sort of classier news, Tone.
That's right, because people haven't heard the show before. They've got expectations. What are we going to give them in break two?
Well, I got into the first time I heard a look at the newspaper or some news since we got back 2 weeks, and I saw this Madonna caught with strap-on dildo called Purple Penetrator.
Okay, fine. This is news. This is actual news.
This has happened. She's been spotted walking down the street with this thing in a clear bag.
Is that the same way it was phrased by Kerry O'Brien on the 7:30 report?
I think so. I think he had one. I don't want to go into
Purple
it.
Penetrator?
I think so.
Fine, as long as it's news.
He brought his. But I was just thinking when she was walking home, and I thought, how bad is it to be Guy Ritchie? Not only are you Madonna's sort of handbag husband that everyone remembers from Swept Away, but she wanders in the door and you go, "G'day, what have you got there?" "Well, Guy, it's a new toy that I thought we'd try." Oh dear. But I know you're wondering what we've been doing over the break.
Yes, that's
and
right.
this is amazing that this story's come up because we've got some shocking footage.
Oh, have we?
Audio, that is. Footage would be pointless on the radio. We've got some shocking audio of how Madonna got herself this purple penetrator.
Really? Can
Let's
we hear
cross to that now.
Well, I'm Richard, and I find this one is totally the best. Do you like Grey's Anatomy?
Unbelievable.
Hang on a second.
Richard Marsland gave it to Madonna.
How do you explain that to people who've never heard the show before?
Well, that's how
Richard's voice slightly changes and he feels the need to announce himself at the beginning of every sentence.
And there's always a Grey's Anatomy or a Fergie reference. And, you know, even though that thing was labelled Richard Madonna, I'm still finding myself surprised as to the content of what's in there.
Because you have a very bad short-term memory.
What about the rest of the crew? Well, Nikki Hamilton is our producer. She sits in the studio every day. And
baby on board.
Sort of the adult component of the room, I guess you'd say. Baby on board. Can't stop eating.
Got a packet of tubes in front of her. Yes. Very happy with.
Even in the new time slot, you guys are still chowing down. No one eats more on Rager during the broadcast than Ed Cavalier.
Delicious sandwiches.
He's actually seeing a doctor about this, and people are still waiting for the results of your gastroscopy on the website.
It's going to be amazing.
But what is that in front of you? Let's see what the judges think.
It almost looks like a dessert, but it's not. It's one of the main courses, even though... maybe? Is it possible you overcooked the rockfish just a little bit, I mean?
Your dishes reflect the thinking of the younger generation.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Was that you, Ed? Yeah, did you dub yourself on Iron Chef?
I did, thank you very much.
And what's Nikki eating? What's over in front of her?
I've never had spaghetti with this much caviar in it. It's like a good drama putting two protagonists against each other, both strong.
I had to restrain myself from adding too much caviar to the spaghetti dish earlier, but this one really makes my fish egg dreams come true. It makes me happy.
Your fish egg dreams.
Sorry, I've been waking up in a cold sweat every night, dreaming of cod egg.
That is fantastic. Nobody eats more on air than the cast of Get This. It's Iron Chef Cavalier! Yes!
Thank you very much.
The program is Get This. You haven't slept in if you're worried that maybe you've slept in. We're the ones who have moved because we're very...
Time specific.
That's right. I love it when John Howard invents a new word.
I can inform the member that we would only supply uranium to India for peaceful purposes. I think many Australians would find it rather strange on reflection that this country might sell uranium to China but not sell uranium to India.
We've got to lock this uranium down.
It's good stuff.
We don't want to just be chucking uranium at countries. Who knows what they'll do with it?
He loves George Bush so much that he has to start mispronouncing words, just like his hero.
They might enrich their uranium.
Oh, that'll happen.
He's working on the environment because, Costello's coming up behind him with talk of water, talk of global warming. So Howard's announced that we're going to have something called aspirational targets.
This is part of his aspirational nationalism. isn't it?
What's that mean?
That's a new concept is introduced in the past couple of months.
How does that work?
I don't know. I think it's just looking forward to the future, a vision for the future.
So what are aspirational targets for greenhouse gases?
I don't know.
Is that where you might not achieve them, but, well, at least we had some targets. We're aspiring to them. We don't have to actually, hit them or nothing.
As long as we name them and have a decent go.
I should
People will
announce
give us-
my aspirational swimsuit model targets at this point. Is that...
You are speaking aloud. Keep in mind, you're speaking aloud and you're on the radio.
But if they're aspirational targets, see, people give you points for the effort that you put in and the fun that you have.
Really? Okay. Well, I've set the targets really high. Really high.
I notice you're completely thrown by coming in at a later time. Somebody's already snaffled Zoo magazine. So it's got nothing to say for this hour.
I'm lost.
Howard did meet Batman on the weekend, though. Did you see that? photo?
Really?
Look at that. It's a shot of John Howard shaking hands with Batman in Ryde. I think Batman lives in Ryde now.
I think he lives on a ride at Movie World.
He does. But have a look. What I love is when you see someone in a Batman costume, and they've gone for the modern rubber style.
They have.
It just reminds you of what it really would be like if Batman existed in real life. Just have a look at that photo. It's just like a bit too sweaty. It's a bit bunched up. The Batman costume is impractical in real life. Look at the cape. Howard's got a foot on the cape. He's standing on the cape by accident.
He is too.
It's a bad look for Batman.
And there's a gap between where the neck bit starts and the body bit starts. He's going to get sunburnt in a perfect ring around his neck.
And it's zero peripheral vision.
You
if
can't
you're
see
Batman.
anything.
If someone needs to attack Batman, they just come up beside him. The Mad Hatter could be standing next to him. He wouldn't know he was there.
Absolutely.
Have you been, because this is another thing we do on Get This, we expose young Ed Cavalier to shows from the past that he hasn't seen, that everyone else has, like Batman.
Yes, I watched it every morning while we were on the break. The Mad Hatter had an amazing plan.
The Mad Hatter. I didn't know that you seem to put a lot of emphasis on the Mad Hatter. I don't think he was a big part of the series.
Well, he's incredible. His idea to get Batman, where everyone else had failed with various things like automatic machines of killing and stuff like that. The Mad Hatter had a great plan. What I'll do is I'll dye his headpiece pink, and then for some reason Batman will be so baffled by that he will follow me up a water tower, and I'll kick him in the nuts.
Good theory.
It didn't work.
You know, what the villains need to do is just say no to conveyor belts.
That's exactly right.
All of their plans seem to revolve about conveyor belts. Conveyor belts that seem to go into reverse when the camera's off them, have you noticed? It can take a day and a half to move 2 foot on a conveyor belt on Batman.
Absolutely right.
Were there any new words for punching people? Like before we took a break, there was splunk.
Yes, splunk. Flump.
I think when John Howard met Batman, Batman punched him in the face and he said,
I-E-A-E.
I-E-A-E, something like that.
Well, here we go.
Splunk!
Phallic Baldwin has emailed in to say that he saw the other day Robin hit someone in the face and it said wank on screen.
No.
And I think that we have overstepped the mark.
No.
Not even I will believe that.
I'll believe Splunk.
Yeah, and flump.
I think I saw Splunk in the opening scene of Short Bus. We were
now-
told
oh, dear.
not to mention that film ever again.
Yeah.
Did they say in the new time slot, though?
That's no.
Don't rent it.
No.
It's terrible.
Get it out. Learn something about yourself.
Maybe not.
All right.
I've never seen one of those fitness balls used in quite that way.
That's new from Eddie Vedder here at Get This on Triple M. Hello to any Vedders listening who I might be related to. My mother actually married into a family of Vedders for a couple of months in the late 1970s.
Well, then I'd like to say hello to any lonies out there. I was a loney for 8 months in the 80s.
Yeah.
So hello to all of them as well.
It's very hard. I think I was a foster for a while.
Were you?
Then
A Channing?
a Channing, yeah, possibly.
Weren't you a Chamberlain for a while?
Yep, I was.
You
in
were a
the-
Zaria Chamberlain for a while, I think.
I was never a diamond. Katie Diamond, minus the A in the
Yes.
word diamond. Does that get spelt constantly wrongly in Albury?
Yeah, it does. Or people try to tell me, oh, Diamond. I'm like, no, it's Diamond.
Diamond.
Yeah. You know when people try to tell you how your name's said?
All the time.
What do you get?
Cavalli,
Oh, yeah.
that long one.
In the Melbourne Herald Sun, Ed Cavali's known as Ed Cavalis.
Absolutely.
When are we going to
Famous
start
Mexican bandit.
that TV segment, Telly Cavalis?
I don't
think
know.
that'd be a great
so
segment
No one knows
on the show.
what you're talking about.
No, Katie certainly doesn't.
I have
Katie,
no idea.
from the original Get This, back in the 90s, is with us. And I see your mum's here.
Yeah, isn't she great? Look at her.
Hey, she's waving.
She's
Hello.
waving.
Well,
She's
she-
a MILF, my mum. I won't say what it stands
I
for.
think people know if they've got Google. I think cougar is the phrase people
Yeah.
prefer to
Oh,
use on the
yeah,
radio.
yeah, yeah.
They're all cut from the same cloth. Ed knows. He coaches them in basketball.
Do you?
Cougar City around Tuesday
Oh,
night
don't stick your
basketball.
tongue out. It's so sexual sometimes, isn't he?
That's what
Gross.
Richard's always saying. And what sort of notes will your mum be giving you after this
I don't know.
broadcast?
I'm nervous. This is the first time she's seen me do my magic.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive visually, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah. She loves it.
All right, what we're talking about here in this part of the
Yeah.
program is how do you know when it's time to go home? What do you mean, Ed
Ed,
Cavalis?
what's going on?
Well, we've had 2 weeks off, so I've been hitting the clubs, Rich. You know what
Great.
I'm saying, keeping it local. And I was wondering, because the other night I was out and it was about 4:30 and I was in the world's worst nightclub. I think it's fair to say that. I won't say the name of it.
Best not to.
And I was deciding whether or not to go home when I looked over onto the dance floor and a man in a tuxedo
Yeah.
and a lady it can only be described as third base and beyond, really.
Really?
On a dance floor.
Tuxedo.
Interfering.
Yeah, real
Tampering.
real interference going on. And I thought, that's it for me.
That's time to go.
Yeah, and I turned
That's
to the
when
person.
you know it's time to leave.
See you later. And then I thought, well, that's the worst thing I'll ever see in my life. But the other night I was out with my flatmates, who shall remain nameless, via Roo, and he came back from the bathroom and he said, oh, man, oh, no. I said, what happened? He said, I was in the bathroom with another guy. And I weed into a cup and I handed it to him. And I said,
Why?
do you want a taste of my urine drink? And he was so off his face, he went, yeah, man, that'd be great. Took a big swig. I said, that's it, dude. Not
Yep.
only is it time to go home now, I don't think we can ever hang out ever again.
No, that's it. That's when it's time to change your name and move to a new family.
In his defence, he said, I told him what it was.
See, I
told him.
I wasn't sure that we were going down the urine drinking path.
No.
Speechless.
Because in my day, you knew a party was over when somebody reached for an acoustic guitar
Oh, yeah.
and started having a crack at Neil Young's Cinnamon Girl.
Oh.
At 4:30 in the morning, that is pens down.
The modern day version of that tone is anyone with an acoustic guitar going, does anyone know Jeff Buckley? Grace?
Oh,
seriously.
there we go.
Let's hear a bit, shall we?
So many people are Jeff Buckley at 4 in the morning.
Get out of it, son.
Katie, how do you know when it's time to pack up and go home?
Oh, see, because when I see people pashing like that on the dance floor, that's when my night begins.
Really?
Yeah, because I
That's
love
when you
it.
clock on.
That's when I clock on. This is when the show begins.
Really? You can dig that?
I think it's hilarious. There is nothing funnier than when people are so into each other. My friends and I get our camera, and that's when the night begins.
Is that right?
And we see how many photos we can get in of each of us sticking our thumbs up.
So you're like
with the lovers in the background.
so you're like Albury's Perez Hilton,
Yeah.
really, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
night over for me is just probably when I start seeing 6 of everyone. And that's when I'm like, probably best to leave now.
Enough for me.
Mr. Marsden, when do you pack up?
Okay, well, I was
When
going to say,
pavement finishes?
you know, it's time to go back to work because last week in the same day, John Howard said he was staying in the seat of Bennelong.
Yes.
And also Led Zeppelin said they were going to reform.
Yes.
And all I could do all day was walk around the house saying, "Been a long time since I rock and rolled." Then it was time to go back to work at that
How
point.
long? He would have been sitting on that for a week, rehearsing it on the way in the car.
Yeah, that's too crappy to say on air. But I had an all-day risk
we are.
marathon.
All day what?
Risk marathon for 9 hours with Marty Sheargold last week. And it was great. A lot of, I don't want to
Who
say what
did
kind
you
of...
start out with? Which group did you start with? Prussia and the like?
Yeah,
Austro-Prussia?
I had people all around the place. It was
Really?
intergalactic.
Oh, Intergalactic,
But
sorry.
if it was actually real risk, then...
What's
the way the afternoon was going, we would have invaded Amsterdam and Jamaica very early on.
It's nerd country, Katie. That's where they're standing. That's
no
where you'll
idea what you're
find
talking about.
Mrs. Sheargold and Marsden playing some kind of online game. Is that what it is?
No,
or
it's a-
No, it's a board game.
Oh,
Risk,
it's a
where
board
you
game. Pardon me.
dominate the world.
Okay.
And you know the day's over when Marty goes to get his Wallabies jumper and comes out with a rugby, just starts tossing it at you. Let's go and play some rugby at 11:30 in the evening.
Is it when somebody's pashing on the dance floor? Is
Yeah.
it when the acoustic guitar comes out? Is it when Marty Sheargold starts playing rugby in your lounge room? Call us up and tell us when you think it's time to go home.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Well, as a DJ in a big club in Sydney myself, if the DJ starts to play Summer of '69, pack up and get out.
Oh, with you there, Chris.
So that's a room clearer.
Yeah, well, actually, I did your trick, Tony. I cut it down to one verse and one chorus. Get out of it.
53 seconds. Never had a complaint yet.
Hey,
That's right.
Chris,
Yep.
what's totally going off on the DFs at the moment? What are the kids screaming for?
Well, the one thing that people have actually been liking that I'm doing, I mixed the Fetty LeGrand song "Put Your Hand Up" for Detroit.
Yep.
Mixed that with Jerry Rafferty's "Baker Street." Loved it.
Very
Chris,
nice.
bit of mashup work from you.
Yeah.
I'm partial to the
All
mashup.
right, well, Chris, I guess it's appropriate to say to you, keep it straight.
By the way, guys,
Yep.
I've actually got some news for you. I'm the guy who started your Wikipedia page.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic. And it's been a wonderful year and a half of vandalism ever since.
Yes, Chris even put me on there.
Oh.
My name officially got on the internet because of Chris.
There you go.
Wow.
Well, there's nothing cooler. I know chicks dig DJs, but they also dig guys that can start Wikipedia pages.
That's right, and I'd like to say it's mostly accurate, but my real surname is not Penis. I wish people would stop changing that. Hey, what we do know about is politics. Oh, don't we?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
On this show, nobody can tape an interview off the telly and play it back like we can.
Nobody at all.
Prime Minister, there's been a lot of talk about this meeting with Alexander Downer.
Look, Kerry, I'm not going to get into the detail of my conversation with Mr. Downer. I'm not.
Well, could you sum up the meeting for us in a word?
I had a conversation with him. He had a meeting. He got views. He communicated those views to me. He acted correctly. He acted decently. You know what my reaction to all of these things has been over the past few days. There is simply nothing to be gained by my trying to answer to you precisely what may have been said in a meeting that I didn't attend. I know what Mr. Downer said to me. I know what was in my mind when I spoke to him. I've told you there is really nothing to be gained, and we're both wasting our time going into it any further.
Well, that's 115 words, but you can understand why people would be interested in
more in the future we have for the people who are viewing this program.
Well, sadly, Mr. Howard, it's the bill, followed by a repeat of Birds of a Feather.
Well, I mean, give us a break.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes, I know, it's appalling. But, Mr. Howard, is the pressure getting to you?
No, Kerry, it's not.
Well, some of your recent statements have been quite eccentric.
I heard Peter Beattie say the other day that he's lost interest in politics.
Peter Beattie? Well,
Peter's an ambitious man. One day he will lead the Liberal Party.
Right.
I believe that he is my logical successor.
OK. You're also quoted as saying you'd like to fight the entire campaign dressed in a Borat-style mankini.
There's a lot of things I want to do.
Right.
And I have resolved very much to fight this election campaign like none other.
And in order to capitalise on the fact that many of your colleagues are more popular than you, you're changing your name by deed poll to John Howard Costello Downer Turnbull Bruff. So quite a mouthful to remember on election day. So punters will
I'll be voting for Howard Costello Downer Turnbull Bruff.
Well, that sounds insane. Mr. Howard, I think you need to re-energise your party. How would you describe your dynamic team for election 07?
Look, we're like any other group of politicians.
No, that's pathetic, Mr. Howard. Repeat after me. We can win this election.
We can win this election.
I want to stay.
I want to stay.
I love politics.
I love politics.
And some nauseating cliche to end on.
And we owe it to the future of our children.
Oh, very good. Now, what about sexing up your message, your vision for life after the election?
But look, can I just say something about that? I've given a lot of thought to this.
Right.
My position in relation to the next election, and this is what I'll be telling the Australian people, is very simple. If the Australian people are good enough and kind enough to re-elect me again, there are a lot of things I want to do, and I would want to approach those things with enormous energy, but I would expect well into my term.
Yes.
And after those things have been implemented and bedded down, I would probably, certainly form the view well into my term that it would make sense for me to retire.
So, hang on, your promise to the Australian people is, if re-elected, you will retire.
I thought this through.
Yes.
And what I'm saying to the Australian people is, well into my term, I would come to the conclusion that it would be in the interests of everybody if I retired.
So that's the carrot you're dangling. Vote for me and I'll definitely piss off.
I think that's good.
It's a terrific idea.
You're very welcome.
Finally, Mr. Howard, I take it you've heard Triple M's Get This program. They say the show often manipulates people's voices to change their meaning.
Well, of course it does, even this interview.
So who will you be voting for on election day?
Rudd, Gillard.
Prime Minister, thanks for your time.
Peter Garrett.
Oh, there you go.
Voting Garrett.
You heard it here first. You're listening to Get This.
I think it's off, frankly. Just think it's off.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rudd, just providing a bit of balance there. Okay, I won't throw to you, Ed, because you are eating. He is eating on air. Just while we're waiting for him to finish that mouthful, can you electrocute Mr. Rudd, please? Sure. People love hearing that. What they love hearing even more is the time that Ed Cavalier electrocuted himself live on air. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think so.
It was just before our break. It was flying a helicopter around inside the studio. It was something we were giving away. And he touched the microphone with the remote control. Some people have been suggesting that was faked up. Oh, no.
Wow, really?
You call this faked up?
Step 4, leave the controller to the chopper at least 5 metres far away.
Now, the antenna is currently touching. Ah!
He's electrocuted himself.
What happened there?
There it is. That's for you, Stacey Borg, who says, but I'm sure a small electric shock is nothing serious for a man who is prepared to dry hump a meat slicing machine now. We have to explain things for people who are new to the show in the new time slot.
Do we, Tone?
She's talking about meat pie.
Is she, Tone?
Yeah. It's an unreleased Australian film, a real film. You can look up the trailer. I think it's now correctly labelled trailer as opposed to trailer on the YouTube, and it really gives you an insight into the early
People
work.
really look at me differently after they've seen this trailer. A lot of people come up to who know me quite well, and they come and say, Ed, are you okay? Like, were you in some trouble? You could have asked me for money.
He's having sex with a meat mincing machine. It's a sort of Australian version of American Pie now.
Except classier.
I can understand why a desperate man may want to make love to something they've bought at the pastry shop.
Yeah.
But who's going, oh, check out that meat mincer?
I don't know.
That looks like fun. To me, that's sort of like a premise.
Well, what else are you going to do, Tony?
Problem?
In a meat pie shop, what else are you going to have a go at? The fridge? It's not going to work. You know, the cutting board? Well, there's nothing there.
Over our break, has there been any sort of progress in getting this film released?
I told you, the last time I heard from the director, and there was no message attached, it was just a flyer for an art exhibition that said his name, art exhibition, picture of a nude woman. That's the last I heard of him.
And I believe there's an added scene that they went back to afterwards for reshoots.
Yeah, to make it run over an hour, because the movie was running under 1 hour.
It's 26
With
minutes
a goat,
of more
right,
animal
okay,
love,
yeah, the goat.
26 minutes of illegal bestiality.
That's not...
And that's going to help it come
Alleged.
A meat mincer. There's sausage rolls, there's sachets of sauce, so many other things in a meat pie shop. But you go for the thing that actually
When was the
grinds
last
up
time
meat.
you were intimate with a sachet of sauce, Richard? We've had a break recently.
Yeah. Yeah, it
What
has
are
been
you
a quiet
into?
period. Yeah, sure.
French dressing man, are you?
Bit of a drought. Thousand Island, yeah.
He loves the condiments.
Get some
Okay.
croutons on there.
Oh,
Okay, so what we're going to do is to kind of, because we're trying to get this to come out. People, our listeners,
No, we
want
don't
us to
want
have a screening. They want us to have a special.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
No.
They said they want a bootleg screening of your unreleased film and my unreleased film.
What have
That's
you got, Richard? All your stuff's out on community television.
Yeah. No, it's every. Yeah, I'm on every week.
What about a Get
All
This
my stuff.
bootleg film festival?
Oh, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Add that to the list of things we're never going to get around to.
Oh, speaking of...
Because there's been so many of them. Again, for new listeners, Ed, just this year, promised a rain dance exhibition. He promised...
No, I didn't.
You did?
No, I promised a rain dance.
Well, did we get even that? What, this is it now?
I'm doing it right now.
Somehow I feel like you're going to electrocute yourself. Somehow it's going to happen. Then there was going to be the power ballad you were writing with Richard.
Oh, now, Richard, something's happened with that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. There was the crap night out.
Oh, yeah.
There was the Booty Bank Challenge in Zoo Magazine.
That's still on.
And what about the attempt to get onto Funniest Home Videos?
Well, okay, this is the saddest of the lot because, as you know, I made a brilliant film last year. Me dressed as a giant mouse, comes home, surprises my friend Travis. He turns around, punches me in the face.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's no meat pie, but it was good. It was very entertaining.
But
It's
the
no
mistake,
community television cameo appearance.
unfortunately, you mentioned it on air
Yeah, for weeks.
before they even opened the envelope.
Shush, Tone. But the point is that Funniest Home Videos has been taunting me ever since. Now, I'm the only person with the last name Cavalier in Australia.
That's true.
As we know. Now, listen to this. Sam Trotter's written in and said, I was watching Funniest Home Videos the other day. There was a setup, a kid, a classic 4 or 5, made a slingshot out of 2 posts on the ground. Something hit him in the face. Then the voiceover over the top of the video said, "This'll teach old man Cavalier next door not to mess with us."
How bad is it when you're being stirred by the voiceover man at Funniest?
Well, there's no way to get back at him, so I've brought him into the studio.
Have you just?
He's standing in front of me here, and he sounds a bit like Richard, and I'm going to get back at him the only way he knows how.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. What's your name? Mr. Mr. Voiceover Man. Well, how would you feel if I accidentally exposed myself to you, hey? Well, why don't I just push you down these stairs? How about that? Okay, well, I'd cop a look at this cute puppy. How do you feel about that? Yeah, right, and to finish it off, I'm going to kick Richard in the nuts.
All me plums!
That'll learn him.
It just felt to me like you were taking it all out on Richard.
Yeah.
You weren't even calling him the funniest voiceover guy by the end. It's very poor. Look at these people who have decided to snub Australia. Barbara Streisand is snubbing Australia during her latest tour because she was offended by comments during her last tour, her Timeless tour in 2000. Streisand was slammed by critics for using an auto cue to remember stage banter between songs. Not even the lyrics. Like the material she's doing between songs.
Yeah.
Stuff like, is there anyone here currently involved in a heterosexual relationship? Like, you'd be able to remember that, wouldn't you? I'd have thought that banter would be lasered onto your brain there.
Stock standard.
Who else is avoiding Australia? Well, Madonna has consistently snubbed Australia since 1992.
The Girly Tour, which I worked at both days in Sydney. I was an ice cream seller. It was cans en masse.
Yeah.
From opening to closing. Whoa.
Is this comb bra period?
Hey, sorry?
Comb bra?
Yeah, but you wouldn't know it because it was off.
15 years later, and you still recall that it was cans en masse.
It was, and what they did, in case you couldn't see the cans, they had this massive pole that someone would shimmy to the top of. Cans akimbo, and then just sit there. It was like a can satellite.
There's your can-do connection. Bon Jovi, they've recently only gone as far as Japan. They haven't made it down to Australia. We know why that is, because Marty Sheargold will no longer...
provide the flashpots.
Yeah, he is a flashbot specialist. Used to do all of the Halen, all of the Jovi back in the late 80s. Yeah, but he's busy on the M's in Sydney, so no dice. So they don't come here anymore. Who else is snubbing? George Michael will not tour because he refuses to do long-haul flights.
Not enough shrubbery in our parklands for him to cavort about in?
Not enough time to scoob up, I'm presuming. Oh, listen to this. Genesis is unlikely to bring its current world tour to Australia. So it's not all bad news.
Oh, fantastic news.
Something I love probably more than anything else in the office downstairs is when I hear Ed Cavalier, who is, how old are you, Ed? Just say
27.
27. Didn't you turn 28?
Oh, yeah, 28, sorry.
He's lying about your age.
Sorry, that would slip my mind. I am 28, you're right.
Under 30.
Sorry.
Lying about his age, but I love it when I hear you use these words in my day.
Yeah, man.
When you start going to people in their early 20s.
Absolutely right. If you were born in the 90s, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's the thing nowadays, is that so many kids, if you hear a song in a movie or you're looking for a song, you can just go to the internet and dial up the lyrics and find out the name of the song, download it in 5 minutes. In my day, you used to have to go to the second-hand record stores every day after school and file through heaps and heaps of records to find a song.
So true. Can I do one of these?
It takes hours and days and weeks.
In my day, in the 70s, being a film nerd, being a film nerd now, this is what it sounds like. There you go. Oh, hang on. I've just bought a house for JB from the Melbourne Cage. I shouldn't have touched that computer. That's what it sounds like. You just look anything up.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the way I do it.
Oh, you have to have the Halliwells in the 70s.
Yes.
You had to hope that your local library had a subscription to the LA Times and that somebody hadn't stolen the calendar section. You had to stay up till 4 a.m. There was no video recorders. You had to have a pen and paper to transcribe the end credits. You had to be fast.
You know what I used to have? The golden video retriever. Every video ever released, every single year we got it at the video store, and I would just study it. Just study it, just to see if Dom DeLuise had done anything I didn't know about.
So in my day, is that what we're doing? So we're starting sentences.
Start a sentence within my day. Now, there is another reason for this, apart from our nerdy ones. There's a bridge is going to be built in a Chinese village where kids are forced to cross a raging torrent on a steel cable to get to school. Now, sure, flying foxes are fun, and I agree with you, but only when it's mattresses or soft ground underneath. When it's a raging torrent, which I assume is full of electrified somethings.
So,
in my day, I used to have to make my own lunch when I went to school from about the age of grade 2.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if anyone's ever eaten celery sticks in sticks of Vegemite every day for a month, but you can get fairly strange on that stuff. So in my day, I had to make my own lunch and I had to carry my horse to school through the snow.
Wow. In my day, when you wanted to get yourself strange, you had to have a piece of celery with some Vegemite on it. There was none of this modern crystal meth for us. In my day, you want to do another one, Rich?
Well, in my day, if we're talking about school days,
I can only imagine what used to happen to you at school.
In my day, we used to go to school in the big old yellow school bus. Where have they gone?
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the old Napoleon Dynamite school bus.
Yes.
Driven by Mrs. Stoner.
Did you get any up the back? Any kissing up the back?
Did I push the window out? Is that what you mean?
No, did you get a pass on the
Tunic?
school bus?
No.
I think we need to know more about Mrs. Stoner.
Yeah, who's Mrs. Stoner?
She's still doing it.
Hi, kids. It's me, Mrs. Stoner.
We're going to the moon today.
In my day, dogs used to come to school and kids used to play with the dogs.
So true.
But, like...
So true.
One day it was our dog.
And?
Hey, there's a dog running around oh my God, it's our dog.
In my day, you'd spend most of the afternoon waiting for the Commodore 64 cassette to load so you could play wheelchair soccer. Only for it to fail on hour 6 of the load.
That's all you have to do, listeners. Call us up with a sentence that begins with the phrase, in my day.
G'day, Michael.
In my day, when you used to watch the nudie bits on your VCR, you'd have to put up with the lines.
Oh, that's so true, from all the pausing.
The pause
Exactly.
lines. Yeah.
Michael, so what were some of your favourite VHS nudie bits?
Oh, well, I'd have to say Under Siege. I knew you both loved Under Siege.
Yes, Erica, Elle and I are emerging from birthday cake.
That's it.
Which was, because Ed used to work at a video shop, which was the scene in a movie with the most tracking difficulties? Are we talking Basic Instinct?
No, we're not talking Basic Instinct, Tone. It was Porky's. It was the first part of the party scene in Porky's. And sometimes people would bring the video back and say, this doesn't work. And you'd put it in, and there was a howling, screeching noise when the Norks came out, because that was the bit that was so heavily paused.
Okay.
And one time it just snapped in the video player.
Wow. Well, for getting that.
But not Porky's The Revenge. People were over it by then. G'day, Mark. How are you?
In my day, cartoons were real. A duck could get its bill shot off and they could have a cigarette at the same time.
Oh,
So true.
that was so true. Characters smoking in the cartoons.
Yeah, it's boring now. All they do is play with cards and throw swords at each other.
Yeah.
It's all product placement, isn't it, Mark? Like, they've all kind of they've always got their swords up front so I can go and buy it and stuff, isn't it?
Exactly, Ed.
Now, tell me, Mark, were you a Smurfs fan?
No.
What, really? Oh, because I used to love it. Because
There was no gunplay or smoking in the Smurfs, though.
No,
was
but
there?
Yeah, no, Papa Smurf's ears just didn't do it for me.
Well, you're obviously nothing like Gargamel, because the whole premise of the Smurfs, the whole show was based around Smurfs being delicious. Gargamel wanted them so badly that he was willing to put up with pretty much anything just to get one taste of one. Imagine what they taste like, Mark. Imagine what they must taste like for a man to dedicate his life to them.
You've thought about that too hard.
I have.
No, Mark is right.
I've had 2 weeks off. Man.
Today's kids just are being denied the opportunity to see a duck's beak shot round the back of his head. We're living in a nanny state.
Mark, how are you?
Well, back in my day, if we ever had to go somewhere, we had to get the pushy out, we had to walk. These days, like my kids, they want to be taken everywhere.
Oh, don't they? What's the shortest distance you've had to drive one of your kids?
Oh, the shortest distance, probably 50 metres up the road to school.
Oh, just to fetch a ball that's been
More or less, yeah.
across the road, yeah.
Now, Mark, were you walking, on the streets paved with cobbles, no shoes, that kind of deal, carrying your horse?
Well, actually, we had a holy house down at Rye in those days, and it was all corrugated, sort of sandy, dirty roads.
Oh, yes.
But it toughened you up, didn't it, Mark?
Did you say,
wonderful days.
where did you say ride or rye?
No, in Rye, before I moved to Queensland,
in Sydney.
6 ago, so...
Yeah, isn't that where Batman's hanging out these
think
days?
so, yeah.
Shaking hands with the Prime Minister. Very nice.
Finally, Danielle, how are you?
In my day, I went to a private girls' school and they made us wear horrid grey tunics to school with, those white collars, flying nun collars.
Yeah, I do remember.
Torture.
And
yeah.
now it's just boob tubes and G-strings for everybody, isn't it, really?
We wished.
And Danielle, did you try and sort of, lift your hem a little bit?
Oh, of course.
And,
yeah.
and how'd
Pulled
you go?
the socks down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You were a devil.
Yeah. So was that sort of the school policy? The scratchier the clothing, the less likely the teenage pregnancy?
Pretty much, yes. Spot on there.
Greg Fleet is sitting in for this hour. Of your many famous roles, surely none more famous than
my favourite, of course.
episode 517 of Prisoner, Delivery Man 2.
And let's just remember, Tone, that's Delivery Man 2.
That's right.
Not 1.
Probably my favourite ever story told on this show was when you talked about filming that and the actor playing Delivery Man 1.
We've got to find him.
Accusing you of trying to upstage.
Yeah, and basically we had like one line each, and the rest was just lifting this stupid robot that had a prisoner hiding in it in the back of our truck. And he took me aside at one stage and went, "Listen, mate, I think if you check the script, you'll find Delivery Man 1," and pointed at himself, "Delivery Man 2," and pointed at me, like, tone it down, you know? And I just thought, you terrible, tragic old loser.
Yeah, well, here's the big news.
Uh-oh, he's written in. He's a big fan.
No,
He's in the studio.
Here he is now.
He's your father.
Hey, Delivery Man 1.
No, what's happened is they're putting out what is described, according to Andrew Mercado, as the world's biggest ever DVD box set. All 600 and something episodes of Prisoner.
That is ridiculous.
So finally we'll be able to see what the fuss is about. Anyway, went to the internet, looked up...
I've never seen it.
Prisoner, looked up Delivery Man 2. Seems you played Delivery Man 2 in 517.
Don't tell me I got recast.
Earlier in the series, episode 430, Nick Buffalo played Delivery Man 2. Although, according to nerds on the internet, his name was misspelt as Rick Buffalo.
I took the Buff's action.
And then a few episodes after you, episode 539, someone called Terry Brittingham essayed the role of Delivery Man number 2.
I was wondering why I never got a call back about that. I sensed they were using Delivery Man 2 and I wasn't getting the call.
It's like the three Catwomen in Batman. Are you the Eartha Kitt, or are you the Lee Merriweather, or are you the Julie Newmar?
Newmar.
You're the Newmar.
I'm the Newmar. But Delivery Man 2. So you actually looked up Prisoner and Delivery Man 2, and that came up.
That's right.
That's a real character, Delivery Man 2. That is so funny.
Type it into the Internet Movie Database. And what I thought we might do the next time you're here is we might get Nick, nay, Rick Buffalo and Terry Brittingham in.
We'll have a delivery off.
A delivery off. So who can deliver stuff the best? Who can deliver stuff the second best?
Who can deliver stuff in the most secondary manner?
Yeah.
What a great idea.
Hey, you're delivering stuff really well, but a little too well.
Yeah.
Get this at the new time of 2 o'clock.
Or in Adelaide, 3 o'clock.
On the Triple M Network.